CBKRadioland.com. Man, I haven't said that in a long, long time. CBK, it's been a long time since we've done anything. I think COVID, COVID wasn't that long ago, but it's crazy. We started doing this, a long time ago, and then we've known each other for a while. We've mentioned that many, many times, I think, on this, but man, it's pretty crazy, huh? I mean, let's see what we got. We're gonna dust off the microphones, and we don't even wear headphones anymore because of technology. We'll just have to see. I see you got headphones in the background there on the clock. Maybe you can go grab them.
It's pretty cool. That's from Rick. You know, my old shop foreman, the old shop. Rick, remember from the bus days in Utah, and so he sent me that. It's pretty cool.
So
see if I can put it.
Yeah, exactly. We don't even have headphones anymore. So CBK, how you been, man? You're
trying to put the headphones on. Good. I'm good, man. It's really good to talk to you. I was just thinking the last time you and I filmed something, I was in Snohomish, up north in Washington, and I was sitting in Bubbles LaRue's house, right? Because I was living with her at the time, and we were talking about, it's been so long since we did the radio thing, and where I was and why I moved. Then I moved back to Utah. Anyway, now I'm in the middle of Oregon.
Yeah, Utah, Oregon, Washington, Utah, Oregon.
It's nuts. Totally nuts.
So, well, good to see you. I'm glad that you're alive and well, as they say. Now, you had a little bit of a medical issue that you weren't alive. Well, I know you did a podcast yourself on this, on your thing, but tell us a little bit about what happened.
I still don't get it. It was so shocking. It's been, I think, 8 days. I think I had emergency surgery, man, on my appendix. What the world? I was working I worked for the city of Albany, and I was full time, and now part-time, and they happened to just call me in on that Friday night. It was a late shift, and then at 10:30 I had this pain on my right lower abdomen for probably 2 days. So I wasn't exactly sure what it was, and I had worked at OSU where I work now the days prior, and even that Friday, but I just felt this strange pain. I was putting my seatbelt on and off, getting out of the bus, because you get out, because I want to get out of the seat. I'm driving all the time. I want to stretch my legs or whatever. But it was kind of annoying me. And I talked to the GF, and she was like, oh, maybe you should go. And I'm like, I was debating that whole 4 hour of the last of the day. I was like, should I go? Should I not go? I said this all in the podcast. What do you do, man? TK, what do you do when you're not 100% sure what's going on with your body, but there's some pain, and then I finally I walked in and did it. I went to the ER at 10:30 at night, and I knew it was going to be a long, long one,
Crazy.
Long way.
You're good, but you're good now. They took your appendicitis? They took your appendix out, and now you're good.
Yeah, the appendix is like that little stinger thing, like at the end of your colon, right? That little weird, I don't even know what that thing is.
Yeah.
It's weird. And I guess it's about, I don't know, they said 3 inches or something, which seems kind of big to me, but I don't know. Yeah, it was just a random, I did it. And the doctor said, the ER doctor said, oh, good thing you came in, because when those things burst, it is not good. And it is fatal.
Well, we don't need that. We don't need anything fatal. No, we're good. We don't need anything of that. Well, good. I'm glad that you're not fatal.
I'm walking around the house a little bit. Went to the store. We went to lunch yesterday. So yeah, it's feeling okay. I do get to go back to work next Monday, so we'll see how that goes. It's been very weird sitting here in the space, by yourself all day, all night, So.
So yeah, so then we do. Oh, let's do a podcast, or let's let's get some time. Let's kill some. Well, you know, you and I, like we've mentioned before, old radio guys started back. Well, you started in radio before me. I did it on the ship for fun, and but radio and DJs and all that stuff. That stuff is kind of changed. And one of the things I think we're trying to do here is there are, I think, times where we forget about things in the past as to the things that have made radio music, whatever. I mean, radio's kind of dead now. Everybody just listens on their phone or you know, they may even stop. I'm hearing that they're going to stop putting AM radios in cars now. They will not.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, which is so beyond me. You know, it's just,
you know, so I guess an AM radio, we can go buy an AM radio station. They're probably going for cheap these days. So, but yeah, so I just felt like this might be something that just kind of, you know, I don't care if people watch or listen or whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, just for us to talk, to kind of keep that, you know, whatever, I don't want to say alive, but just to remember how we got here and the things that have made, you know, us, you know, in society better in regards to music and in regards to just pop culture or whatever it might be. You know, it started somewhere, and you know, music has been around for many, many years, and it's just amazing to me how some of the music has evolved, but how some of it has stayed the same, or that stuff that was popular when we were kids are popular with the kids now. I mean, and I think about it in terms of, like, I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago, so
congratulations!
I'm in the 50s. So I think about, all right, well, when in the 80s is now 40 years ago, all right? So I look at it and I say 40 years ago, 2024, 1984. And I remember 1984. I could go and pull up all the hits and you'd be like, oh yeah, bam, 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 bam. Now, remember 1984, let's go back 40 years from that. That's 1944. And I'm like, so I can't even imagine in 1984 listening to stuff from 1944 and thinking it's good. But kids today go back and listen to stuff from 1984 and think it's good. I mean, they like it. I mean, not all of it, but it's something about it. So it's just really interesting to look at that. And I just thought this would be, you know, to talk about this stuff. I think it's important.
Well, it's funny you say I have a young lad, RTRG, we call him. He's he is 15 or 16, right? So when I was 16, like you said, in 1984, I was 14 years old. So it's just amazing how, music from the late 40s and the 30s has transitioned from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, right? I know that was one of the things you talked about in the topic thing, but it's hard to believe. I can't imagine myself back then thinking about it, of what I am doing today, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, like, just to go, let's see, today is February, whatever. So like the top song on February, on the Billboard 100, in February 25th of 1984 was Jump by Van Halen.
Jump.
That's the number one song. And I mean, you hear that today. You hear that all the time. You hear that like on commercials and stuff like that. And like I said, can you imagine 1984 hearing something from 1944? In fact, there wasn't even a Billboard Top 100 in 1940. I can't even go back and tell you. It was probably like some sort of like orchestra or dinner,
something jazz, something was the top hit back then, right?
Right. It's just crazy to think about it like that. So
it is bizarre.
So anyway, so I just feel like that this is kind of something fun to do and just kind of remind people of, where we're at. And one of the things, like I said, we're going to get into a bunch of different topics through these podcasts or video casts or whatever we do now. I've got all these sounders from back in the day where some of them were fun where you're like on this radio show or TV show or something.
And here it is gone to fruition.
Exactly. So
I have been listening since we talked, but you wanted to record some of the shows, and I really miss mixing. Like I was playing, you listen to the best day show, the best of, right? I use the DE as of in a lot of my typing and words, but all the mixes and I still miss it. You know, I don't have the studio set up like I'm using a phone right now. Like I think you said, oh, this is how it's going to be. I mean, back in 2009, I think when we originally started this podcast thing, before podcasts were a thing, right?
Dang. It was crazy. I mean, I thought that I knew that this podcasting or whatever you want to call it was going to explode. And in fact, I remember I told you, I said, you know, everyone's going to start using this phone thing for their music and for their entertainment, and they're going to just plug it into their car and it's going to play, and radio stations are going to start going away. You're like, no way, man. And I was like, yeah, I think it's going to happen. And sure enough, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, music has definitely changed. Like I mentioned before, like the DJ, and you know, the death of the DJ. You don't hear I mean, I guess you do have some shock jocks every once in a while, and you also do. They're all going to Sirius XM or like that, where they're being hired to do these old time radio shows. But even then, I mean, they're not getting tons of listeners, and most people just go to their phone. You know, make their own. They're their own DJ. Except they don't have the jock to go, hey, it's 10 after 10 here on a sunny day in Los Angeles and stuff like that. They've kind of gotten rid of all that. And it's just the music.
Yeah, that is the weird thing about what, there it goes. It finally turned on. The computer. There is none of that anymore. There's no, I was thinking when you were talking about 1944, Alan Freed, I think, was one of the first disc jockeys of the 50s and all the payola thing and the scandals where he was like, hey, I'll take some dough if you want to hear some platters, you know. You don't hear that anymore. And from Wolfman Jack and, even to my idols, Machine Gun Kelly, he had to change his name. When I was listening, because now he's a stupid alt rap kid. I think he just put his whole body like black tattoo or something. Anyway, not that I keep up with those things, but it's amazing to me how I was involved. You were involved from the ship side of things, and I just listened to Pat Cashman, who was on the 100.7 The Buzz. He does the podcast with Lisa Foster and his old cohort, the Canadian guy, just died. So they did a whole podcast about him. And it's just the old days, the old ways, makes me think of what it was and what we did, what I tried to do, especially in Hawaii.
Right.
To have that, I don't know I guess it was success. Sure, it was my success, and I missed it. And then I got back involved with you, and then we got to do our own little station thing for, I think it was running for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we ran for about 3 years. Yeah, I missed that too, actually.
I do. I think about it, Tim Kuda, all the time about having the station on, because I have this little radio here. I mean, it's little. I don't know. I'll bring it up to the camera and see this.
Oh, yeah.
It has a cassette tape, right?
Oh, wow. That's wow, cassettes.
Yeah, and this is from, what ship that's from, right? This is Armed Forces Radio, the television, from Sunday, August 3rd, 1997.
Yes. Is that you?
It's the old Cruise FM.
Cruise FM.
So they don't have tons of tapes in this closet view. And I've been listening to them, and it's fun to listen to. It's weird. My voice was weirder.
Yeah, I took I actually took my cassette tapes. This is a while back. I took my cassette tapes and turned them into I put them on a CD, so that way the tape goes bad. And then I took the CDs, even like a while not as far back, and made them digital. So I've got it somewhere in my digital library. I can go back and pull the clips. It was funny because what I did is when I was editing it, I just took the me talking. Like I just took out the music because I was like, well, I don't need the crappy version of Paul Abdul's Opposites track or something, whatever it was, and then and so I'm like, I can just take that out just so I have the audio to listen to. And you've done that before too. I've noticed like you'll go some of the stuff that you've sent me is some of this from your older stuff that you've done. You'll go from track to track to track, and the music will fade out, then it'll fade back in at the end of the song, and then it's CBK, and then that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, it's a classic air check, and even with doing voice work that I was doing, and now that's changed. Now it used to be you sent a cassette into CBS FM, right, and see if you get your name picked to be a disc jockey or something, or a voice job. Now it's all MP3, it's all computer. There's individuals who do it. There's voice people, which is just crazy. They're teaching other voice people. It's like, what?
Yeah. There's a huge industry, but it's one of those industries that's just hard to get into, because when you get into, it's like you gotta find your lane, and then it's like once they find that person, they go back to that voice. It's like there's only like X 100, whatever number it is, of voices, and they tend, once you get established, kind of like actors. Once you're an actor and you're a big name actor, you tend to get a lot more scripts offered to you just because your popularity. The same with voice acting. If you got to get in, and until you get in, it's really hard to break through that barrier to be one of those voice actors, because then they tend to the studios and the gamers, the game companies, or whoever needs the voiceover, they go to their list of established voice people. So yeah, I know that's a really tough gig.
Yeah, it just amazes me how many thousands, just like podcasts, how many thousands of podcasts are out there? How many thousands of voice people from New York to Florida to Texas to Hawaii? Where it's amazing, Yeah,
I wanted to change the name of this to the bazillionth podcast, because there's a bazillion of them.
Right. And I'm just shocked from when 2009, when we started this audio form, there was no video, right? Or maybe it was just starting out kind of.
Yeah.
From today, and people even go on vacation and they're doing a voice job. Oh, I got this call. I got to check my email, and now I'm doing a voice. And they put a little blanket over their head or a pillow or something, and then they do this, recording and send it to these companies or their people, and
they don't even know it anymore. The believe it or not, the phone microphone is actually pretty decent. And I'm getting you. You're on your phone. I'm getting you well. I could take it, and I could take your voice. I'll scrub it through AI, and you'll think you were in a studio. You would not.
Yeah, I am super shocked to hear you say that.
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about this like offline, but when I scrub this through AI, you'll be like, what? You'll be like, you would think you're back in your hut, the one that you had in you had in Salt Lake, where you had like the hut.
Yeah, in the cave, and you were there, right? You came there.
Yeah.
Came on an anniversary, birthday. I think it was your birthday. I don't remember. It might have been February. Now that I think
it was right after my birthday. Yeah, I came, and I came to the salty lake,
and I gave you a cake and all that.
Yes, you did. You sure did. Yeah,
that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about Facebook is, I I'm in certain groups like the disc jockey groups or the 70s group, and it shows, this 3,000 watt radio station on this little hill in New Mexico is, it's still here, it's still running, and it's, it's not a big, large market. It's not LA or New York or something, but it's just amazing what those memories bring back, right? And to see it and to think about that we did it, and we were good, Tim, at what we did back then.
Yeah, we were. And we talk about, like I said, the death of the disc jockey. You mentioned, like Wolfman Jack and like some of the big time, old time disc jockeys. We're talking from like the 60s. They were the person who determined whether or not you were successful as a band or a group or an artist a lot of times, because
Absolutely.
they were the celebrities. They're the ones that everybody knew because, TV didn't have cable. So there wasn't 1,000 channels, and people listened to the radio way more often than they did. And you would listen to the music, and if jock 1 or 2, whatever, in whatever town, you'd have to hand them your 45, and they would have to decide. And the record execs would push these guys, because once they played it on the radio, I mean, there was a movie that Tom Hanks was in, That Thing You Do. He produced that. It was about the wonders of a fictitious group from the 60s that had a one-hit wonder.
Yep.
Which, but it was interesting how it showed how they're like, you gotta play this, and then everyone, we're on the radio. Like when you're on the radio, if you got a song on the radio, it was like, holy crap, you were like, you made it, but you couldn't get it on the radio unless the DJ, because the program directors didn't even have as much say. It was the DJ; they could put whatever record they wanted to play. So that was a big part of whether you were successful or not, if you could get in with that DJ.
It's not only that, too. Perfect example would be around 1966. Tommy James and the Shondells. That song, I Think We're Alone Now. That song was played like prior to at some point, but then it went away, and they couldn't hear it, right? And somebody found the track in the trash can outside the studio. They're like, oh, what's this? They brought it back in. They gave it to the jock. Guess who played it right then? And it was all of a sudden another hit again, like later.
Well, there was and this is that happened for a while through the 80s, and then actually in the 80s it started to change because radio became a lot more corporate in the 80s.
Sure.
It started. But like even there was a song by Donny Osmond in the 80s. Soldier of Love. Soldier of Love, I believe, was the name of the song. Yeah. And some disc jockey, I forget the guy's name, from LA played it, and he said it was a mystery artist because he didn't want people to hear Donny Osmond thinking, oh, Donnie Marie, the Osmond brothers, whatever. Yep. Like they didn't want them to have preconceived notion of what the song was going to be and turn it off. He played it for, I think, about a week or so of just as an anonymous person. And then they brought him in to the studio, and they played a game, like, who is it? Guess who it is. And then it was Donny Osmond. But it ended up being a hit because of the way it was. The DJ, he drove it to a point to where somebody was like, oh yeah, I like this song. I'm not going to judge it based off of Donny Osmond. And that's the type of stuff that was a perfect example, like you said, with I Think You're Alone Now, but because there have been a lot of songs, which is crazy too, that have been redone, that have been remixed, that have been either brought back to life. I mean, it's just nuts. Like, I'll give you an example. Like in 1990, I was looking at this. You talk about the Righteous Brothers had one of the top hits in the 90s because what was it? It was
You've Lost a Love and Feeling or something.
Yeah, I think it was that. No, it was I had it was something that was in a movie. So what happened is that they recharted because it was in a movie.
Right.
And so so that it's just how it works. The same thing with like, so going back to like how the disc jockey had such a huge influence on what we listen to and how we listen to it, that I still think that there are songs that maybe you and I like that we might not like today. And the reason is because we had to listen to it. We didn't have the forward. We didn't have the, it's just not even going to come up in our playlist. And then you listen to it over and over again, and you just end up liking it because it's like it's repetitive. You might not have liked it initially, but you've heard it a billion times. So now it's like, oh, I like that song. And now you go back and you listen to a song. This happened to me. I'll go back and listen to a song from the 70s or the 80s that I was like, what the heck is this? I'm like, oh, this is a great song. And when I was a kid, I turned it off.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that too. Just last October, Halloween, Michael Jackson's Thriller from 1988, I think, somewhere around there. It went back up the charts. And so did Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree, too.
Yeah.
Things play again. I think you're right. This generation, and they're weird and they question everything, right? They got to have the facts. Where's the facts, right? When they hear a song, they're like, oh, that's an old song from 1955 or something. But now they heard it, and then someone else passes it to the next friend, etc. And then somehow it's in your television commercials, like you said, or it's playing on the radio, like this classic rock station I was listening to about Van Halen. Because this Double Shot Tuesday, by the way.
Two for Tuesday.
So it's just funny how life works, you know. And
Unchained Melody is the Righteous Brothers from the 90s.
That's in the 80s. That song was like the number one love song since the 60s. 20 years of the same number one love song. So yeah, I get it. And I think it was in that movie. What was that? That Baby. Her name was Baby.
Right.
That movie.
The Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing.
But I thought, I don't know if that was, or if it was, I think this might have been from the movie Ghost.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Because Bill Medley and Jennifer Warren did I Had the Time of Your Life for that movie. But I think this charted because of I could be wrong. I'm trying to use this noggin here. You know, as you get into your 50s, all that stuff you were able to recall in 2 seconds. You really got to go back into the file cabinets, and it's like the old person like going like, oh, all right, or you got to go find it. So it doesn't. You can't recall it instantly. But I think that was. But yeah, go ahead.
I just did this recently. It's talking about the 80s, and a movie that did influence me was Footloose with what's his face, Kevin Bacon, right? And the Bacon brothers are like instrumentalist rock singers now or something. But that movie was filmed in Lehigh, Utah, which is south of where I used to live. And there's an old mill. I don't know if it was the old mill. It was a mill. They made flour and whatever. But they filmed that movie there. And Utah is trying to get Kevin Bacon to come back for the 40-something anniversary to dance in front of the old mill for that scene that he did in the 80s movie.
Wow. Yeah, that was, you look at who was in that movie. I mean, John Lithgow, who has had a very interesting career. In that one, he would have thought he would have been like this, crazy. He's played crazy parts. He's played comedic parts. I mean, he's even played a transvestite in the movie The World According to Garth with Robin Williams. So I mean, this guy has done a lot in his career, which is crazy. Diane Weiss, who is the mom in that one, I mean, she's done a bunch of stuff and still has. I mean, you still see her from time to time. And then I mean, obviously Kevin Bacon, but like Sean Penn's brother, he died. What's his He was in that movie, and he passed away about, I want to say 8-9 years ago now. But but like Kenny Loggins, okay? So Kenny Loggins was Mr. Movie Guy in the 80s. I mean, he was doing all the movie themes. And it's funny because Kenny Loggins is still on tour. And I saw Kenny Loggins a few years ago, but I also see him come up in social media a lot. And he's still doing stuff. And I mean, when the new Top Gun movie came out, he wanted to redo Danger Zone, but I guess Tom Cruise was like, no, we're good. We're gonna put you in the movie again, but we want to do that and keep it the old one. But
There's the dumb. Still a dumb, like some other people we know around here.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's just interesting to see how that, like you said, all that does go through, and with all the, with going back to the like the disc jockey, where how it's important now that you realize that now music is done differently. Spotify, like anybody can be an artist, and it's not, the disc jockey has absolutely nothing to do with it. If I've got a song and I can get some social media following with it, or get it picked up in the algorithms of TikTok or Instagram or whatever it might be, or on Spotify to get it in people's playlists, now that's the new thing. It's like you have to have it's almost the virtual disc jockey of trying to get your music in front of people, and it's got to be good too.
I've noticed a lot of things coming through Facebook that are new songs or singles from somebody you don't know, some name, unknown person. Hey, check out this new video. And it's like, I think I've even seen there's a number, please call this number to, I don't know if they're voting for it or what, but it's so crazy. But yeah, unknowns. And they're getting airplay on their.
So when we had our radio station, so this was what? We were like 2017, 18, 19-ish, I think is when we were. And when we were doing it, because I was trying to get us to be popular, I put our radio station everywhere around the world, on every place that I could do, like
I know,
every streaming service, whatever I could do. Well, I still get emails from people across the world, not necessarily the United States, but sometimes submitting me songs for airplay.
Really?
Yeah, I still get these songs. Hey, could you please put us in your rotation? I'm like, sure. If I still had a radio station, I'd put you in rotation, so that way myself and CBK could listen to it, since we're the only ones who listen to it anyway.
Exactly. But remember, there was that bot in Germany that was
we had a bot. Some bot who is loving us. We're number one with the bots in Germany, let me tell you. Number one. But I mean, it was crazy because I remember you would say that you would just leave it on in the background, so we would get you'd have it being played all the time.
And I left that thing going overnight, and River, the radio guy, was sleeping on this couch right here, and that thing was on all night.
Yeah, back in the day. And then we'd have, I remember we were doing it, and then it was just we're doing it every day, and we're doing it. Because I was actually talking to some people at work about radio. I was telling them about, voice tracking. And believe it or not, most people don't realize, because even on XM, even on Sirius XM, which is popular and whatnot, you'll hear the 80s on 8 channel. It's like Mark Goodman, and you hear him, or Alan Hunter, and you'll hear them talking. They brought all the VJs in, and now they're DJs, whatever. And I'm like, that's not live. I go, that's not live. They recorded that a day ago or whatever. I mean, I said, so I challenged everybody. I said, listen to what they say. Will they talk about some current events? Yes, but they won't talk about something that's going on right that moment. In fact, the only time I've ever heard them do anything, and still a voice track, is if somebody big in rock and roll were to die. Somebody, and it was big news, and I'm trying to think of, they would cut a voice track so that way it was going to play but it's not live. They're not saying, all right, we're going to put you live in between, the Jump, Van Halen, and Genesis. No, they say, record this, and then we'll put it in here in an hour. And so I explained to people what voice tracking was. They were like, really? I go, yeah, that's not live. I go, it's like the old TDX or Memorex. This isn't live. It's Memorex. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's all recorded. And it's amazing to me how people don't understand that. They still think that, I said, they go, what about on my radio in the car? I go, well, that's like a morning zoo, a shock jock or something like that. There are still some morning zoos out there. Those guys are probably live. I said, but then when it switches to music, there's a good chance that those are all voice track. And then you know what? I said, there's a good chance that DJ isn't even here in the Vegas area or even in the Chicago area. There's somewhere in Utah in the middle recording it for LA, for Seattle, for, wherever it might be, because that's what they do. People don't, they were blown away, CBK, blown away.
Wow, crazy. It's funny. Sorry, I'm trying to plug in my phone here because I'm going to be losing battery. But this KLOO station here out of Albany, Corvallis, Eugene, Salem, or whatever, I've noticed in the morning, it's a classic rock station, but it's not just, the Styx and the Van Halen, and then they're playing some early 60s stuff. I think I heard Donovan the other day. But there's like this one woman's voice. I don't remember her name offhand, but I think she records something like you said prior, and then it goes on the air. She does like a music trivia minute or something. But then at 4:30 p.m., guess what's replayed? The same thing I heard from this morning.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's only one lady that I think when I first moved here, I emailed her like, hey, you need any help? Because there is some weird, I mean, I'm into the news. I listen to KXL up in PDX, but south of me, I'm in Albany. So south is Eugene, and they have I think they have a 104.7, I don't know, a station that plays pop hits and rap hits. And I think there's a classic 99.1, and they play like old hip hop stuff from Run DMC,
Right.
and maybe some Eminem or something here and there. But the station, there's no news station down there. I think there's an AM station, but I don't even get here. I'm too far. I'm 2 hours away from PDX. So I guess I'm out of the range.
Right.
But I remember when I was in KODJ in Salt Lake, my parents were driving through southern Utah. That's over 100 miles south, and they still heard me. So, well, maybe it's too many trees around here.
So the history of radio, this, and me being an avionics guy when I was in the NAP.
Right.
The history of radio, AM radio. They used to have a ADF, they called it, on an airplane, and it was actually an AM radio. That's all it was. It was just different, a little bit different frequency. And so, but they could still tune in. They still had it just enough on the band to go back and tune in an actual radio station. So sometimes the pilots would be flying and they'd be bored and they'd turn the ADF on so they could get like an AM radio station. But the thing is that if you remember, I mean, for people, anybody who's younger than us or whatever, I mean, a lot younger than us, why do they do a station ID? A station ID was FCC required at the top of the hour. And the reason for that is because of AM radio. And if I am I'm trying to figure out where I'm at, at the top of the hour, if I get a radio station, is going to be KODJ from Salt. Oh, I'm somewhere near Salt Lake, or
right.
And so that was a requirement. I don't know if it's still a requirement. I mean, all the stations, even TV stations, were required to do it for a long time. They have to ID themselves at the top of the hour. I don't know if that's even a requirement anymore. But to your point, why you could hear AM so far, because you could. In fact, sometimes you get this atmospheric stuff where the signal will bounce, and sometimes I could have tuned into an AM radio station. Like I was in, and a lot of times it's at night. There's something about, I forget the exact, at night it goes a lot further. And
right.
And so I remember when I was in the NAV and I was in Memphis, and I really wanted to hear a Chicago Bulls game, and it wasn't on TV. I tried to get the AM radio station. I barely could hear it from Chicago in Memphis at night, just a little bit. So yeah, I think So just it's crazy how that's changed, and now they're going to get rid of AM radio.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And I thought that was, I don't know if it went to the Senate or something to be rolled, because I heard it's still there, but then I heard again, maybe it's not. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's still there, AM, but it's like the cars. The car manufacturers are going to stop putting them in cars. Now, I don't know if they said no, they made a law. No, you have to put it in there. I'm not sure, but I know they were going to stop doing it because they're trying to. There's only so much room in it, and then if they have to put an AM radio in a radio system, they want to put more Bluetooth stuff. They want to put more USBs. They want everything because everybody's going to use their phone. They don't. I mean, seriously, I can't. I'll be honest. I can't even remember the last time I turned on the AM radio. Maybe one time when I saw that flashing thing on the road, traffic alert. Traffic alert, go to 1640 on AM to see what it is. Maybe, and I couldn't even find it then.
Yeah, all I'm thinking about what you're saying is, these new cars, especially these electric cars, the display, Tim, is ginormous.
Right.
Right? And there's probably some XM station going on, or that's what they want. They want like TV and video, and all you got to do is sit back like this. The car's going to drive. That's going to be watching ER or something.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you go to Back to the Future, and you look at from 1985 to 2015, we were supposed to have flying cars and stuff. It was kind of crazy, and they did a video about this, I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube, where it showed some of the things they got right, like in their prediction for 30 years ahead. I mean, they showed where you walked in to the 80s cafe, and then there was a robot taking your order, kind of like a video. And there's they show you now type in your order. I mean, it's not exactly like that, but it's like you go to McDonald's, you don't have to talk to the person, you just type in your order. And some of the virtual stuff that's still there, but we don't have the flying cars yet, but that's coming. The drone technology is being expanded to vehicles that people are going to ride in. So you're going to get in. It's probably 10 years, maybe 20 years away where it'll be commonplace. Where you get in, you close the door, boom, you press a button, say, I want to go from here to here. And it'll just ring and drop, almost like the Jetsons a little bit. But it's coming. It is, and I've seen the technology. This is not science fiction. It is coming.
That's amazing. And you say the Jetsons, and I think of that theme, and they haven't made a movie about the Jetsons yet. Come on.
That's a good point. Maybe we need to do it. We'll start writing it. We'll pitch it to a studio, so that somebody can steal it. But
I mean, I've seen those, those fan-based things that, especially with Star Wars and those kinds of things. But yeah, it's just, to me, it is incredible. It's the technology from music of a small little dial radio, back in the 20s or 30s, compared to this thing is obsolete right now. You know what I'm saying? And now it's all Spotify and make your own playlists. If I want to hear some Beatles, all I type in is Beatles, right? And boom,
you get the whole library. Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I think it's pretty interesting because in that regard, technology is not all bad because we were able to do what we were able to do. I mean, think about it. Even for 3 years, we ran a radio station. Think about that. I mean, it was a virtual radio station, but we would have never. So the tech, and even the stuff that we're doing now, we just boom, let's call, boom, bring in, here we go. Now I do happen to have a studio, which have all that technology, but in the end, it's made it affordable, it's made it accessible, and so it has its positives, obviously, but some of the negatives is that you've lost a little bit, I think, of the culture or if you want to call it just character of the medium, and without having a disc jockey. I mean, people say, well, the disc jockey was just noise anyways, a lot of times. Some respects, yes, but in other respects, they were part of the entertainment package. They were actually part of the music. The music was entertainment, the guy talking or the woman not, whatever in between, and then the music. It's part of it. It's part of like, I know that I still sometimes enjoy listening to, I'll call it old time radio, like on Sirius XM, where you'll have the DJ or come through and say, just talk a little bit. It doesn't bother me. I actually don't I don't dislike or not like that. I mean, it doesn't make me upset to hear that, because I know I have the choice. If I want to go in my car, I'll just turn on my Spotify or whatever, and then I can have the choice. So, but I still do miss that. I do.
It's funny you say that too. It makes me think there is a radio station somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know if it's on the coast, but it's called KY. No, that's Gary Moore. That's a San Francisco-based station that I'm a friend with. KHJ out of LA, the boss jock capital. That's where they came from, right? I was a part of it. This much, I was a part of it because Ron Jacobs started KHJ in 1960s in LA, and that's where Don Steele, Machine Gun Kelly, Charlie Tuna, Robert W. Morgan, all these guys came from the West Coast jocks. But today there is a KHJ here in Oregon, and I've heard it on this station, this radio actually. And they are doing some old jingles from the past, like even some cigarette jingles, which you don't hear anymore.
Right.
But they're playing the music of the 50s. I've heard Freddie Boom Boom Cannon, numerous times. When's the last time you heard him? Ever, right?
When I was listening to CBK on the radio in the ship, that was probably the last time I heard Freddie.
Yeah, and he's an old jock. He's still around, thank the Lord. But and I think he's in somewhere in California living. But everybody's aging. The Stones are over in 70s, 80s years old, and they're still rocking
for the tour. Do you know who's their number one sponsor of the Rolling Stones tour?
I don't know.
AARP.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. You get a discount to the Stones tour if you're an AARP member.
Unbelievable. God, that is nuts, man. Nuts.
So.
Anyway, I had a question when I was listening to that station. I'm like, how can they play old commercials that they don't even hear that anymore? They don't have that product, spearmint gum or whatever, right? But it's in their rotation as a normal today, 2024. I'm blown away. And I meant to ask, I did make a Facebook comment, but they've yet to respond. So I'm not sure who runs them or who it is.
Robot. Probably all AI, man.
I wouldn't doubt it. You're right. Yeah.